Hello, and welcome to the Better Dental Life podcast, where we speak with extraordinary individuals who inspire us by showing us new possibilities and shattering our limiting beliefs. On this podcast, we don't just talk about better smiles, we talk about better lives. I'm your host, Mark Davis. All right, it's time for another episode of the Better Dental Life podcast. I'm so excited about my guest today. Alyssa Holbrook is a life coach and a real estate investment coach, as well as a licensed realtor, and she's a property investor herself. Welcome to the show, Alyssa.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, so Alyssa is currently an independent master certified real estate coach and life coach. She's a real estate broker at Coldwell Banker Realty. And for over a decade, Alyssa's been coaching and aiding others to achieve their investment goals. So I'm super excited you're on the show for a couple of reasons. One is you're a fellow coach, a coaching colleague, and we have been trained from the same school, the Life Coach School with Brooke Castillo. So that's fun for me. And then we also get to talk about expanding our incomes and passive income. So this will be great.
It's so exciting.
Yeah. So first, before we dive in too deep into real estate, I want you to tell me about yourself, your journey. Like, how did you get here where you're at today?
Yeah. In terms of coaching, right? Or in terms of real estate?
Both, I guess. Real estate.
Okay.
Now you weren't you 14 when you had your first real estate investment?
Yeah. So as a child, I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I think there was something in me that just went straight to implementation. So I had been saving up my money, selling flag pins for $1, babysitting, like I had the entrepreneurial gene already. And I asked my dad, I said, I have $1,000. Could I buy some real estate?
Perfect.
And instead of turning me away, he said, let's look for something. And so he was able to find a completely inoperable mobile home. Like it didn't work
I
at
love
all.
that.
The plumbing was broken. The roof needed repair. And so that's where I started, was with $1,000 mobile home.
Oh, I love that. That's great. And then were your parents involved in real estate, or was this just you that thought this would be great?
So my dad was a commercial appraiser, but they hadn't yet invested. He was thinking about maybe getting started in mobile homes. But yeah, they were just really supportive of me. And I just took that and ran with it. I bought my second mobile home after the first one was already cash flowing. I was able to buy a second one at 16 years old. And I literally just got in and I scrubbed 3-month-old milk out of the fridge, and it was cat infested. So I painted kills, which just covers up all the smell. I painted that on the roof and on the ground. And I just laid the carpet myself and cut the linoleum and negotiated for the carpet. I told the woman who was selling the carpet to me, I said, now give me your 16-year-old discount.
Did that work?
It worked. Yeah, she was
great.
very generous with me. So, and I think what happened for me early on was that I saw that me remodeling this home that was really the eyesore of the road of that street, it really changed the feeling of that street. And I was able to serve the next door neighbors there, and I was able to observe people who just were watching TV all day. And I just really got an idea of these are all the options in life. And I am actually doing good with my actions and my efforts and working hard. It pays off, and it created someone a home that they wouldn't have otherwise had. So some people have a negative landlord sentiment. For me, it's oh my gosh, it's the best thing that you could possibly do for the world. We have a housing shortage, and we need to thank goodness for investors who take old properties and make them new. So it's
I love
gift.
that different thought, that different idea, because we do tend to think of landlords as the evil overlords. So I love that as giving back and seeing that as contributing to the world. So that's really cool.
Yeah, totally.
Oh,
So
that's
that
great.
was where the investing perspective began. And I started again, that paid for my college. And then after college, I began again. As soon as I had made money as a realtor, I just invested it in property that was $1,500 a month was the rent that we were renting it for. And then we lived in something that was $500 a month. And the spread between those two properties was exactly $500. So I got this principle of like, when you put money down, it will pay for your lifestyle and fund your life.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
that was a fun next step.
Now, when did you start coaching? I mean, as a real estate agent, you're coaching people automatically, but when did you like formally go
Totally.
to coaching school and start coaching becoming a big part of your life?
Yeah, so that was in 2018. And basically what happened was, as a realtor, of course, I was selling homes and helping investors. And then for myself, I actually kept growing that investment into, I did some ground up development of 60 units. We got into more complicated deals in terms of land conversions and things like that. But I wanted to have more purpose in my life, and I wanted to really heal from a place of how I talked to myself. And so oftentimes we motivate ourselves with unkind thoughts. And that's where I found myself in postpartum depression and anxiety, really having a struggle with allowing my brain to slow down and just being a safe place for myself to be in my own brain. And I remember standing in my living room and thinking, someone has to have solved this. Like someone has to have the answer to how to feel good with yourself and like actually be kind to yourself. And
Oh, yeah.
that's when I found the life coaching school. And as soon as I found the podcast, I'm such an action person. I signed up to become a certified coach within like 2 or 3 days. So
You went from I want to heal myself to I'm going to do this for everybody. I'm going to the
yes,
full school.
yes, I was all in. And it really has been that for me. I have worked with my coaches and self-coached and just been able to develop that relationship with myself where I'm just kind. And I
Yeah.
think, I mean, no amount of money can compare to that. Like the investments, whatever, but I love them. And they enabled me to have the time to then learn about what I cared about and to become the person that I wanted to be. So for me, it's really about the growth. That's my top value is personal growth.
That's awesome. Now, you are a coach, I'm a coach, and you have coaches, and I have coaches. So we as coaches believe we don't have all the answers. We also have coaches that help us. So why should everybody have a coach? Why is that important?
Yeah, this is such a good question. I'm just going to share my experience from this week with my coach. Like, I brought something that was surface level. I had a question and was like, I think there might be work for me to do here emotionally. And in this scenario, we went to healing it at this nervous system level. And that involves processing emotions and feelings and letting visualizations or images or experiences that happened to me in my life come up. It feels maybe a little bit more therapy-ish, but as a deep dive certified coach through the Life Coach School as well, that's something that I really value because we can solve things with our brains and then we can also solve things in our bodies. And our bodies are just so brilliant. They know exactly what we need and they know exactly what we want. I think so many times we just cover up our wanting with our own logic and our own thought. And so we can heal that at the cognitive level as well. Asking questions. Someone once asked me, basically, what do you really, really want? Like if you were the Wizard of Oz behind the screen and no one know what you chose, what would you want? And that was such a great question for me. I got different answers when I asked that question.
And what did you decide? What do you really want? And now I'm dying to know.
Yeah, in that one, it was actually when I was being coached about my marriage and whether I wanted to stay or whether I wanted to go. That was a long period of questioning for me, to get to the place where I had clarity there and that I felt like I had done my work so that I wasn't deciding to get divorced against, because that doesn't feel good. It feels good to make a choice because the relationship is complete.
Oh, wow. You know, there are some really strong parallels to dentists and their practices and a marriage. And
Yeah, tell me.
and so as we get closer to retirement, about age 49, 50, we start thinking about retirement a lot. We start getting sick of our practices in some ways. We know it really well, and there's things that drive us crazy about it. And many dentists are wanting to retire, to run away from the pain of the practice. And when we're making that decision, when we're running away from pain, when we're running away from something, we're going to make poor judgment, poor decisions. And we're going to find after a little bit of like, whew, relief, we're going to be empty again. And when we look at being complete, like you said, in a marriage, like, okay, let's make this relationship complete. Let's run towards a different life, not running away from something. And dentists the same way. We can run to a different lifestyle.
Yeah.
If retirement's a different lifestyle for us, we can run towards that. But if we're running away from something to get away or to just we're sick of it, we're going to make bad choices.
Totally. And I think coaching is so helpful with that because you can clarify what are my motives and why am I making this choice? And is it a place that feels good? Like we can tap into, do I like my reasons logically? And then how does it feel in my body? Like, am I just making this choice because it feels expansive and open and it feels like time? So in our relationship, I got some amazing coaching from one of my friends and mentors, and it was, we are individuals here on the planet, and then we choose to come together and we can choose to go apart. And it's like nothing's gone wrong in any of that. And so that feels very similar with the practice, right? There's just a time where you chose to go into the practice and a time where you'll choose to go out. And when you don't have to, anything that we do for a feeling, because of a feeling that we want.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and so if we can tell ourselves and understand there isn't necessarily better than here, and I want to go there, and I want to create that, I think it's a beautiful place to be.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I mean, if we're chasing that feeling and we're waiting to be happy till we're divorced, we're waiting to be happy until we're retired, that's where we're missing that. Like, let's find satisfaction and joy and happiness now, or
Yes.
fulfillment in life now, and decide we're going to move on and have a different life later.
Yeah. Oh, that's so
That's
good.
beautiful.
And I definitely got to that place where I was like, I will get to the place where I'm happy where I am. And I really was. And it's still okay to make a different decision.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Now, there are a lot of different coaches out there, different coaching schools and philosophies and thoughts. What makes a good coach? If someone's trying to find a coach, what should they look for?
You know, for me, I would say a lot of coaches maybe focus on accountability, and that is an important part of the process. But I love when I'm looking for a coach to find someone who understands um, healing things at the deepest level possible. And so I'll just share a philosophy from deep dive coach training that is kind of what's going on in my mind behind the coaching. We all have our own unique lizard brain, our own unique set of how we talk to ourselves that we were given based on the experiences that we had in life. We develop a certain narrative. And for some people, it's the world is against me. That's like a very general, broad one. But like for me, it was I hold the world. Like I don't need to ask for help. I've got this, and I hold the world. But that there's a point where that becomes not useful anymore because you can start to feel the burden or the heaviness. Like that was what it was for me. And so when I'm coaching people, not only am I looking at the surface level issue, but I'm also thinking like, what is the lens that's coloring their life? Maybe their power sentence is a way that we talk about it in the life coach school that is not giving them the life that they want or the result that they want. And so when you do that, you can actually teach yourself to be resonant with yourself. So you take that narrative that you were given and you create a resonant way of speaking with yourself internally that is on purpose, that is chosen. And I think those types of awareness and observing yourself and observing your mind, those help you to change your life in the way that feels good to you. So coaching is not for advice. That's above our pay grade.
Right.
Coaching is about bringing you back to you and trusting yourself and seeing with clarity what you want to create. And then you go out as a whole individual and do that. So it's always viewing them as whole and already perfect, already spectacular, and becoming more spectacular all the time.
Oh, that's great. Because I think human nature, we want to, when things maybe aren't going great, we want somebody to just tell us what to do.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I love that a good coach is going to help you find the answers inside you. And they
Yes.
are there. We don't think they're
Absolutely.
there. We think we've exhausted all of our resources and ideas and our brain is exhausted, but they're there. And a good coach will help you find that. That's wonderful.
So true. How do you see yourself doing that with your clients?
I with my clients in I'm focusing, of course, in dentistry.
Yeah.
And so um it's exactly like you described, finding those thoughts, finding those ideas that are getting in our way, those limiting beliefs that we keep telling ourselves, that narrative that we have, and helping us make a shift, recognizing where that's working for us. And if it's not, then let's change it and let's find a new belief, a new power thought.
Yeah.
And for me personally, I can speak of my experience and with my coaching, my strongest limiting belief, the thought that was in my lizard brain
Yeah.
throughout my life has been I've missed the opportunity. And it's
Oh,
kind of a weird thought because I've been very successful, have multiple
yeah.
practices. I've done love dentistry. I've been many outside would say, oh, you're doing fantastic in dentistry, but there's more that I wanted. And oftentimes I'd be like, oh, yeah, I guess I missed that. Somebody else did that first, or I missed that chance.
Yeah.
And now I have a new belief that is me and it's part of me is that I create my own opportunities. And
Oh.
so that has just gained control back for me rather than being helpless and letting the universe happen to me.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. I know for me, I was in fear of feeling regret a lot. And so it's amazing when you were talking about that, I was thinking you can decide not to regret. Like you can
Yeah.
decide not to regret what happened in the past. And one of my favorite thoughts is I did the best with all the information that I had at the time.
Oh,
That
I
just
love that.
brings me to such a space of trusting myself
Yeah.
even back then. So this is something that actually comes up for investors quite a lot because a lot of the investors that I work with are 40, 50, and their thought is, I should have started 10 years ago or 20. And it prevents them from starting today. And or it can,
Yeah.
right? Without
Right.
pushing.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a great point because right now, I'm 50. And so this is in my head, right? I'm thinking about and I'm coaching others about preparing for retirement. And when I think about retirement, I think about really not stop working, but just having financial freedom. That's what retirement means to
Yes.
me. Retirement lifestyle is working for fun and not because I have to.
Yeah.
So I want to have a passive source of income, and you can have different levels of passive source of income where you have total financial freedom to do whatever you want or enough to just pay your bills. But
Yeah.
that passive income for dentists can come from our 401k and investments. That passive income can come from having associates or running multiple practices. Any work we do where we're making money and we don't have our fingers in somebody's mouth.
Yes.
But a great source of passive income for dentists because we tend to make a decent amount of money. We have this money we can invest, and real estate is a really good way for us to do that. But if I have that thought that you just mentioned that I'm 50, it's kind of too late. I needed to start my real estate portfolio 20 years ago. What can you tell me? How much time does it take to start a return? What can I expect in investing?
Yeah. So when you purchase a property, especially if you have money to put down as the down payment, right? We can find a property that is very hands off for you. I call it mailbox money. And while certain things in terms of like a residential household, that might not be so hands off for you unless you had a management company, but within commercial real estate, that is very possible. And that seems to be a good matchup for a lot of my these types of clients. And so you basically save up the money and you have the down payment, and then you go purchase the property. With a commercial property, there's a 5-year lease usually or more. And so that income is pretty much guaranteed for that 5 years. And you literally, it's called a triple net property, where as the owner, you literally are just responsible for the roof, the walls, and the ground. And the tenant is responsible for everything else, including if the insurance goes up, if the property taxes go up, and if there are any maintenance or repairs, the tenant is responsible for those things. And so you just get to own the property and literally receive the check every single month. So that is a good fit, I think, for your people, where not only are you buying the real estate and getting the return, but with stocks, you would have to actually sell the stock to receive the money. And with real estate, it comes in every single month, month after month, and they're buying the property for you by paying down the mortgage. I'm assuming that you're leveraging rather than buying cash,
Yeah.
but it's a very wise way to go. And so
Now,
it just
tell me a
works
little bit
well.
about that differently. So leveraging versus buying with cash. If I had the cash, what kind is that wise? Or would you say, no, if you have the cash, rather than buying all in one property, let's leverage and buy 3 properties? Or, I mean, is that the better approach?
Yeah. So in today's interest rate market, it might be a little bit more desirable to buy cash than it has been in the past, but I'm still a fan of leveraging. And here's why. If you have, let's say, $300,000 of cash, you could either buy 3 properties with $100,000 down payment, or you could put it all into one. Well, if you buy 3 different properties and they cash flow already, then you are getting the appreciation. As we know, more money comes into circulation and properties go up in value over time. They generally track inflation and tend to be very stable in that way with certain real estate cycles every 8 to 10 years or whatever.
Right.
And so in that, you are going to have the property appreciating and becoming worth more. So not only do you have the cash flow that comes in every month, but you also have that opportunity where, like in our properties, we have several $1,000,000. Like if we just chose to sell right now, we would have several $1,000,000 of cash coming to us just because of appreciation. So I never invest based on appreciation, but it is one of the biggest reasons to invest.
Oh, that's
So
fantastic.
if
Now,
you had 3 of them, they're all appreciating at the same time. Whereas if you had only one of them is appreciating, right? Does that make sense?
yeah, you bet. Now, what would you, when you're looking at an investment in real estate, do you start looking at returns? Is that what you're looking at initially? Like, okay, what can I expect in the rent versus how much am I putting down? What numbers are you looking at to find a good fit or a good investment?
Yes. So it is the returns. And there are a couple different metrics that we use and a calculator that I use with my clients so that you can know if it's a good return within about 5 to 10 minutes. And I see that being very empowering for people to say, I know what a good return is, and I know if this is the return that works for me. So I can say no to all the properties that are not the return that I need, and then yes to the ones that are. So we're looking at basically you're given the numbers from the current owner of what the expenses were last year. In most cases, you can get that information and then make a decision based on that. So I'm looking at how many dollars do I put into the property and what's the return on that? It's called the cash on cash return. And then there's the cap rate, which is another metric that is similar. So I don't know if we need to go into detail, but
No, that's great. Now, one reason, now I actually have some investment in real estate. A lot of dentists do just if it's their own building. I mean, that's a big part of my
sure,
real
of
estate investment
course.
is my practice building. But I have a little bit of investment outside of that, but a big fear that I have with investing in real estate is I don't know what I'm doing. And someone's going to find the better deal and I'm going to buy the wrong property, or I don't know where to look to get the deals, right? So how
Yeah.
can you coach me into out of that? How can you coach me to find the right property?
Yeah. So we actually begin with a 90-minute strategy session and we look over every single part. Where do you want to invest? What market would work for you? What strategy do you want to use? How much money do you have down? It's like a very thorough and personalized meet with you about your your personal financial situation. And then we just look at what investment makes sense for you right now so that you're getting the outcome and the return that you want. So I actually walk you through that entire process. Like I have a 7-step process that we follow as we coach together. And at the end of it, you have a cash flowing property. Like that is the goal. And you
That's
have the
awesome.
mind that is the investor's mind. So you're able to see and create deals and create income. And that skill goes with you forever. So it's setting you up so that you have all the knowledge that you need to create what you want.
Now, what do you see as like the big mistakes people are making? You're going to
Yeah.
prevent that when we talk to you, but somebody that doesn't talk to you and have you help them, what mistakes are people making in real estate?
Yeah, the main thing that I see is either not having a clear path to follow to get to a yes, meaning they don't even know where to start. They don't even know what questions to answer. They don't even know what makes a good deal. And then the second half of that is analysis paralysis, where they're looking at a bunch of different deals, but they're looking at them and thinking, that one doesn't work. That's not the numbers that I need. And then they just get discouraged and either give up, or most of them still keep looking. They just never actually get the cash flowing property because they never make the offer. So it's that hesitation between, I don't see a property that works, versus we turn that into, this property will work. Let's see how, and let's make an offer. And it's that emotional component of the fear of risk that we work on a lot.
Now you can coach somebody anywhere.
Yeah.
And that's easy. How about finding real estate anywhere? Is that really regional? Do you coach people that are across the country, but then you say, all right, work with this agent over there to try to find something? How does that work?
Yeah, it's across the US in any market. There are certain markets that I wouldn't recommend for different reasons generally, that have low cap rates and probably not the returns that you want. So there are more desirable markets based on what people are usually hoping to create. But I work in all markets with all of my clients, and they're not even always investing close to where they live. I have an investor in Seattle who's investing in Columbus, and it's not always location dependent even to them, because it depends on your outcome that you want to create. And that doesn't necessarily line up with where you live. Now, if that's a preference, which it is for some of my people, if you say, I only want to invest close by, great, done. We'll find a way.
There's not any property close by to me, so it's going to always be a ways away. I live out in the middle of the desert, so there's not a lot of real estate. So that's good to know. I can have something from a distance. That's nice.
That's so interesting. I still want to ask you questions about that. I'm like, can we touch on that?
Yeah, no. So I love this, and in our last podcast, listeners would maybe remember talking to a friend of mine who is a dentist in Ely, Nevada, and I was telling him, we both live out in the middle of nowhere, and what he told me is like, no, we live out in the middle of everywhere. Everything is out here. Everything we want is out here. I'm like, oh, I love that. So I do live out in the middle of everywhere. But where I live in Lakeview, Oregon, and Lakeview, Oregon is Eastern Oregon. And it is, if I want to go to a traffic light, which I don't, which is why I live out here. But if I wanted to stop at a traffic light, I'd have to drive about 100 miles. So I am out in the country, and I love that because it is out in the middle of everywhere, where I can do cycling and running and hiking and backpacking and all the things that you can do out here. So,
wow, that's incredible.
But commercial property, there's some, but not a lot of commercial property. My building is the commercial property for the town of Lakeview. It's the
look at that. Look at that. You found something to invest in the middle of everywhere.
It's me. That's right. So, somebody new coming to you, the first steps, you said, like, we're going to have this consult. You said 90 minutes. Is that right?
Yeah. So my consult with me is different than the strategy call. When you book a consult call with me, I'm going to sit down with you and look at your whole financial situation and ask a lot of questions about what you want to create and start building that vision for 6 months from now. Here is what your life is going to look like in terms of your investment potential and your investment portfolio that you're building. So when we sit down, go ahead.
Yeah. And then how long is that process with you? How long are you coaching us through that?
Yeah. So we sit down for the initial consult is an hour. And then after that, we're going to coach together for 6 months. So you have access to me for when you find a deal, when you're looking at properties and analyzing deals. I'm able to give you feedback on those, very tactical. A lot of people say, I just want someone to hold my hand through the process, right? They want someone who asks the questions that they don't even know to ask. And so they find that to be very valuable because their brain is beginning to think like an investor and ask the questions that they need to anticipate the obstacles that would come up for this property and create a strategy to overcome those. And that kind of becomes the path to creating a successful investment. So it's a good way using all of our life coaching tools and kind of marrying them together to get the outcome that they want.
So any favorite investments that you have, anything that was like really awesome wins for you?
Yes. So I really enjoyed doing a very creative land play where we purchased a piece of land And then we split that up and sold 2 pieces to 2 different builders and kept a piece for ourselves. And when we did that, we put in $220,000 cash to that deal. And then we got out 320. So 100,000 of that, right? It's awesome. 320,000 profit on top of everything. I got to clarify
nice.
that. So we took out $220,000 cash in a chunk. And then the last lot was worth that 100,000. We pledged the lot as its own down payment and negotiated with the builder to build us a building at cost so that now we have that continual recurring revenue. So that's kind of one of my stories because it's just so much fun that I like to tell. But I want to give like more for someone who doesn't want to take on that level of risk and who wants something more simple. I just want to talk about that for a minute. We bought a medical office from a seller who wanted to remain in the building. And because he wanted to remain there, he ended up having to take a hit on the cost of the building, where if he had vacated the building, he would have been able to sell it for more. And so we were able to go into that building, purchase it, rent it back to him. And we actually gave him 2 options in terms of the offer that we made. We said you could either have a higher price with higher rent or a lower price with lower rent. And so he felt like he had a lot of choice, right? He could decide if he wanted to sell it to us. And we were able to buy the property and then have a 5-year lease going forward where he would pay us every single month. And we wrote that contract in a way that he would maintain the air conditioning. And literally, I just get emails in my email that they maintained the air conditioning and they came and they serviced it. And I just get notified. And the money just comes to our PO box every single month. Like, it is really amazing. And so if he were to vacate, I would actually be able to sell it for more than I bought it for, which it's just such a want match. So that's called a sale leaseback. That's the strategy that we used for that property. And it just brings in money every single month. And if our money were sitting in the bank account, which we actually have quite a bit there, it's losing money based on what's happening with inflation. So last year, the money that we did have in the bank account lost 8% because the money could buy 8% less because of inflation. Whereas when we bought that in 2021, and it's now has a significant amount of equity in the property of that the property's worth more than we bought it for, and we've been paid every month, and they're paying the mortgage down for us, and we're able to have the write-offs on our taxes. And so like, this is the 4 different types of returns that really add up to make investing in real estate such a good idea. Like, if you notice different professions, it doesn't really matter what profession you're in. If you want to stop trading time for dollars, real estate is the solution. And so everyone kind of funnels to buying real estate.
Now, is that landscape changing at all right now? What's with the commercial market? We hear a lot about housing market and that the sale of houses, but in the commercial market, is that changing at all right now?
The overall market is affecting both residential and commercial. There are specific sectors within commercial that are changing, like office is becoming worth less over time and industrial's really taking off. But we just kind of want to look overall at what the market's doing. And the market really is presenting a great opportunity for new investors getting in because of the real estate cycle and where we're at with that. So we've had the highest climb for a long period of time, and we're about to see some prices coming down. You're already able to negotiate lower prices if you know what you're doing. And so Warren Buffett said, invest when, or what did he say? Invest when people are scared and be greedy when people are scarce and scarce when people are greedy. And so the investors who kind of know what they're doing, which can be you with a coach, are able to find and create those deals already before we see so many open up. But it's an ideal place to get into real estate because of what's happening in the market overall. And then there are micro markets within that, even just in terms of different areas that will make certain areas more desirable than others in terms of your return. So I just walk you through that whole thing. It's not complicated. It can be very
that's great.
easy.
And you're right. Right now is the time when people are scared. Right now is the time to be looking at it and thinking about it. It's probably going to be that way for a little while. Real estate's going to be it's a good time to get in.
Yes. And I love about that, even with the interest rates, because though the interest rates are high right now, you'll be able to refinance when they're lower, but the price is fixed. Like if the price
Yeah.
that you get in it right now, which is much more reasonable because of the interest rates, um, what investors can afford remains the same over time. And so price and the interest rates are inversely correlated. And so you can get in right now at the low price and refinance later.
Now, what about vacation property? Is that, that was pretty hot for a lot of dentists, as we talked about for the last, maybe 5 years. Is that waning a little bit? Is that still a popular investment?
So yeah, it is still a popular investment. In terms of a recession, that's one of the things that will be most likely to be hit early on historically. Though now we see that people are able to be location independent more often. And so I don't know that that's true in today's market, but I think it would be fun for me to share an experience that happened to my
Yeah.
parents
Uh-huh.
because when they were 50, they were thinking of investing and they wanted to invest in Hawaii because that had been their dream. And so as they looked at properties in Hawaii, there were a lot of properties that everyone else said no to, or there were some properties that everyone else said no to. And they happened to find one that was a really good deal because it had a 30-year land lease. And so at the end of 30 years, that land lease will probably not be renewed on the island of Kauai. And
Oh,
so
wow.
their investment will go to zero. But
Yeah.
my parents were 50 and they said, our outcome that we want is to be able to have time with our kids and grandkids at a place that we own, and we can have everyone there as a gathering place. And so for them, they thought the benefit of them using this and enjoying it until they're 80 was
Well,
worth it.
perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's now created it creates enough money for them to live there half the year and to have their kids come and stay with them. And so for them, it wasn't too late, right? It was the perfect
Yeah.
time because they had enough freedom that they could go use it and enjoy it. And they had all the kids and grandkids to bring there. And so that was the perfect example, I think, of it's not too late. And your dream is possible. They literally are there right now,
Oh,
enjoying
that's
the
awesome.
walks on Kauai.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for coming on. I love talking about coaching. I love learning about real estate because I want to expand my income. I want to have more passive income. And I think that's awesome. So I really appreciate coming on. If somebody wants to reach out to you, somebody wants to find you and get some coaching on real estate, how do they do that?
Yeah, you'll go to Alyssa, Alyssa Holbrook, HOLBROOK.AS.me/consult call. And that will take you to the place where you can choose a time that works for your schedule and we can sit down for a consult call. The alternate, if you don't want to type it in, is to go to Instagram, Alyssa Holbrook Coach. And there's a link there in my bio
Perfect.
that you can
That's
use.
the easy way. Go find you on
The
Instagram.
easy way. Yes, exactly.
Perfect. I love that. Well, thank you very much. Thanks again for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Mark.
This episode of the Better Dental Life podcast was brought to you by Better Dental Life. When you are ready to transform your life, transform your practice, and expand your income, become a member of Better Dental Life. You can find out more about us at betterdentallife.com. Make sure to search for the Better Dental Life podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts, and click subscribe so you never miss an episode. On behalf of the team here at Better Dental Life, thank you for listening.